Warriors. I am so glad you clicked on this video today because I had an amazing conversation with my coach, my best friend, and my brother from another mother, and we talked about what is a warrior. So for the remaining of this video, I hope you enjoy the conversation. Here it is. Today we're going to talk about what defines a warrior. This is Tazz right now in front of me.
What's up, guys?
What's up? So, Tazz.
She's lying. I'm not in front of her. I'm at an angle.
Okay, well, whatever. What defines a warrior, Tazz?
Warrior. So, the actual definition of warrior, straight out of Google, is an experienced soldier or fighter.
Okay.
So, most people take that as a literal soldier or a literal fighter. The way I always defined it was a little bit different. The word warrior has carried with me for a long time, even before I started Warrior Evolution. It's kind of always been a word that stood out for me. When in 2013, when I had my first fight, my cousin had made shirts for the both of us. You know, my cousin, I don't think we've talked about him, but we grew up like brothers. So we actually started training MMA together. He was my training partner for the first year of my training. We went to class together, and then we'd come back to the house. He'd hold pads for me more, and he'd really help me get the first year out of the way. And when I ended up fighting a few years after we started, he got custom t-shirts made, and the front of it said Tazz knows, and on the back of his it said cookies, because he likes cookies. And the back of mine, who doesn't? And on the back of mine it said warrior, and that was back in 2013. Is
that the shirt that you wear every outing or
every so often? Every so often I'll bust that out for special occasions, because I wore it too much at the beginning and it's fading, and I don't want it to fade too much. But that word always stuck out to me, and when it came time to pick out a name for the gym, I knew warrior was going to be part of it, just because you don't have to actually go to war. You don't actually have to step into the cage to be a soldier or a fighter.
Yes.
Every day that we wake up and every day we put our feet on the ground and start our day, the fight for that day starts. And then when we go to sleep, that's our recovery. That's, all right, one battle's over, and the next day we're going to go fight again.
With that, so what are the characteristics or actions of a warrior then?
I think everybody has different characteristics, and there's a warrior in everybody, whether they know it or not, because whether you're 15 or 25, 35, 45, you have fought to get to wherever you are, and for me, it's through martial arts. For my dad, it's through being an optometrist. So for all these different occupations, there's different characteristics that you need. My dad and I are very similar, but there's different battles he goes through being in the medical world versus me being in the martial arts world. My characteristics don't make me any more or less of a warrior than what doctors go through. So to define what characteristics, my biggest things have always been perseverance.
Perseverance.
Never had a warrior that hasn't been perseverance, because everyone's got a warrior in them, but that doesn't mean that it's out yet, and it doesn't mean that they even know it yet. And you're not going to get there to that level of recognizing your warrior until you've been persistent or persevered through the hard times.
Yes, I mean, I can relate to that, because that's one of the reasons why I started training MMA. And that was because I felt weak mentally, and I didn't feel like I had the capacity of becoming a fighter or a martial artist.
Yeah.
And you saw that in me. And then when I first started training, I still felt like I didn't belong quite yet. Even though I was training, I thought it was super hard. And then for those that have started MMA, they know that it is hard.
Yeah.
Because it is the physical aspect, but the big part about MMA is the mind aspect.
Yeah.
And I suffered through a lot between the first to the third month of training because I felt like I couldn't keep going.
Yeah.
And that was because I was letting life get in the way. So
I think a lot of people focus, when they talk about being a warrior, I think a lot of people focus on the physical aspect of it. But you might be strong physically, and there's a lot of people out there that I think are strong physically.
Yeah.
And that's all they focus on. That doesn't mean you're a warrior just because of that. You know, I think you find your complete warrior when you're strong physically, when you're strong mentally, and you're strong emotionally as well. And I think there's a lot of people that don't focus on that side of things. So you could be the strongest person in the world, but as soon as you go through something, it's tough times, and you don't have the mental or emotional strength to hold up, your physical strength means nothing. I've seen a lot of people that might not have that physical strength, but they're very strong mentally and emotionally, that I would consider more of a warrior than some of the super strong, physically strong people out there.
Well, I can say that your mind is one of the most dangerous weapons, and your mind is a big part of you, so your mind rules the whole you.
Yes.
So if you have a strong mindset as a warrior, that really defines it.
Yeah. We've all had our days where we train either in MMA, boxing, wrestling, football, baseball, soccer, whatever it is that you play, or even if you just lift weights, you know, you have those days where you feel really good physically, you know, and then there's days where, you know, you had a bad day at work, you had a bad day at school, you got into a fight with your significant other, you got into a fight with a family member, and your mind's just not there. And when your mind's not there, then it starts trickling down into all the other aspects of your life. You know, so that's why taking care of your mind should be the top priority before you go on and do anything else.
And so right now, one of the things that you said was that we all go through battles every day. So overcoming those battles is what helps us, right? Or defines us.
Yeah.
And so what has been one of the, I guess, biggest battles that you faced when you started, well, maybe when you started MMA, or you can say now, before or after?
Yeah, we all go through our own battles, and they all seem unique to us because we've only lived through our own eyes. Right. You know, but for me, you know, my biggest battles have always kind of revolved around the same thing. You know, I'm a very family oriented person. You know, and in relation to martial arts, some of the hardest things were getting my family to be on board. You know, having my dad be a doctor was something that kind of the rest of the family always looked at me like, was I going to follow in the footsteps of being a doctor, or was I going to mess up along the way? You know, and as soon as I started going down the route where I wasn't going to be a doctor, that's when those criticisms started coming through, you know, from family members, even from my own parents, that, you know, they were very supportive of everything that I did, but they were, just because they were supportive didn't necessarily mean that they liked what I was doing, and I knew that from the beginning. You know, so getting...
How was that?
In what sense?
Yeah, the fact that they were not really very supportive.
You know, they always wanted me to finish school first. That was their thing. You know, even before I got into martial arts, I wanted to be a professional wrestler. And my mom always told me that, you know, she would even put money down to send me to wrestling school as long as I had a backup plan. As long as I went to college and finished school, then she was all for it for me to go into wrestling. You know, and then when I found MMA, you know, I think things changed. You know, in professional wrestling, everything's scripted. You know, the traveling and the risks are there. You know, but when you talk about training MMA and fighting, now you're looking at someone that's intentionally trying to hurt you. In professional wrestling, their intention is to keep you safe, to put on these shows. Obviously, your injuries happen in there, you know, but when you're doing MMA, someone's actually trying to hit you, you know, and that's the part that, you know, my mom didn't like. She always said, you know, she spent her whole life trying to keep me safe, and now I'm trying to get into a cage where someone's going to try to hurt me, you know. And my dad he was the guy that was real big on school, you know. He was the first, or one of the first at least, in our family to finish college, and he went through med school, put himself through school, and now he owns his own optometry practice that he's had for almost as long as I've been alive, 27 years I think it's going to be. You know, so he always wanted me to use my brain as opposed to my body, because he always said my brain was going to last longer than my body. You know, and I understood what he meant. I didn't really want to believe him until I started. You know, I'm in my 10th year of training. I'm a few weeks away from my 10-year anniversary. And your body does take a beating. You know, your body does take a beating. So I understood what he meant. He didn't like it, but they never missed any of my belt testings. They were there. Both of them were there for my fight. They were there when I opened the gym. They've always been there, you know, and the more I trained, and the best representation I can give was for my first fight. You know, my mom was crying as I was walking to the cage, you know, but she was never one to watch me train. She wasn't comfortable watching me train. Once I made it through the first round and she saw, okay, he can hold his ground, she stopped crying by the second round, and by the third round she was cheering for me.
Oh.
You know, so
maybe because she missed all those days of training.
Yeah,
she
you know,
didn't know what you were capable of.
And there's a big misconception with what MMA is.
Okay.
You know, so I think once they started understanding from an inside as opposed to just watching the UFC and seeing all the blood, that's when their mentality on everything started changing. You know, and that was one of the biggest battles, getting into the sport. Staying in the sport is a totally different story. You know, you're missing out on, you know, your friends that don't train. They don't understand why you want to be at the gym all the time.
Wow.
You know,
were you the only one in your group of friends, or the friends that you surround yourself with?
Yeah.
The one that did MMA only?
Yeah. When I started training in high school, I was the only one that did it. You know, and then beyond that, you know, in college, I didn't really know any. I didn't start making friends that did it until I started training at Victory. That's when I started. My group of friends started changing. You know, and that goes into another big battle, is that you start realizing who your real friends are. You know, because I never had a ton of friends, but I had my certain group of friends from high school. And once I started prioritizing myself and my training, then I started realizing who were real friends, because the rest of them just disappeared. And to this day, from my high school group, I think it's just one person that I still talk to from high school.
That's tough.
Yeah.
How was the process of you said prioritizing yourself?
Yeah.
So were there like situations where instead of, I don't know, going out to a party, or I don't know, just doing stuff with your friends, like you didn't really choose to do it because you had to train, or how was that?
There was a lot of things where, you know, I missed out on stuff with friends and family. Because I had to go train. You know, I've gone into stages that all have kept me with my discipline of training. You know, at the beginning I wanted to train because I wanted to fight. When I finally fought and I lost, I had to keep training to get better, get bigger, get faster, get stronger. So that's when I started training more. And then once I started teaching while still pursuing another fight, I understood the importance of training outside of class time, because now the class time I'm teaching, so now I have to stay at the gym longer after so I can get my training in. You know, and then because I started teaching more, I had less time to lift weights during the week, so now my weekends are dedicated to lifting weights. You know, so
you're busy.
Yeah. And it was
working out a lot, seems like.
Yeah, because I was hell bent on getting another fight, you know. And then time goes on, and now I got more classes to teach, so less time to train. So now I got to make the times that I do have to train more intense, you know. And because I'm doing that now, I need a rest day because I'm so drained from the week.
Oof.
You know. So by the time Saturday came, and it's the day that everybody wants to do something, I was dead. You know, training and teaching Monday through Friday, and I know I have a lifting day on Sunday. Saturday, I really just wanted to rest. And all of this is still, you know, going to my day job. And it was just that. It was constantly going towards that. And the closer, in my mind, I got to fighting, now I also realized I'm getting closer to testing for my black belt.
That's a lot of pressure.
You know, so now it's, all right, I'm going to train for this black belt now. And then I got people talking in my ear about opening up a gym. And so now I'm okay. Well, if we're gonna talk about this, I need to get my black belt. I need to get another fight in, and then we can talk about opening up a gym.
Oh my goodness.
And all of this happens over the span of, we're in 2020. My fight was in 2013. This was all over the span of 7 years.
Wow.
So yeah, I lost a lot of friends, and there was, arguments at home, and there were family events missed, and now that everything, well, before this crisis, everything was settling in. And I started making more time to see the family members that I kind of neglected over the past 7 years, and have to deal with the jokes like, oh, now you show up, and things like that. So it's difficult, but it's just, keeping that mental and emotional strength. I always knew that the people that mattered didn't care that I was training, and they understood that it was for me, and they were there when I finally had time to do something, or they would slow me down because they noticed I was burning out, so they'd call and stuff.
Wow. So you definitely feel that you developed that discipline.
Yeah.
Did you? I mean, I'm sure you enjoyed the process, but then again, it was a lot going on at the time. Like, you were training, going to school, teaching. Now you're gonna train for a fight.
Yeah.
Now you're training for your black belt.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. So the discipline part was hard, and the process is always fun. But just because I can sit here and talk about it now, and there were a lot of days where I wanted to give up. 2 weeks before my fight, I was talking about pulling out of the fight. And then I had the right people to take that crazy idea out of my head. And then there were a lot of days where I didn't want to teach anymore. I didn't even want to train anymore. But throughout all this time, I think I've only taken 1 week at a time off. I took 1 week vacation in like 2012, so that was before the fight, but I took a week off, and then I came back hard, and then 2013, 14, 15, and then from that point on, it was just weekends that I took off, maybe. I think I spent, in 2014, I went to Florida for like 3 days or 4 days or something. But I've been at it ever since.
Wow. And, for me, just observing, right? Because I've been training with you for 4 years now. And then it's like when I took those days off, I felt so guilty.
Yeah.
Because I knew that you were at the gym training people and training yourself. And that's the thing. Like, whenever you see a coach, sometimes you see them coaching other people, but then you don't see them themselves doing the training.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know for a lot of you, but I've seen a lot of coaches are like overweight. And then they don't even look like they're actually training.
Yeah.
So then one thing that I must say about you and emphasize is that you always train. You make time for yourself to train, although you have a busy schedule with the gym and teaching and doing your business life. So I see that you put the time in for yourself. And that's one thing that I remember you telling me when the days that I would not want to go to the gym is like, are you really just gonna put everything, are you really gonna stop yourself from taking care of yourself?
Yeah.
From taking care of that part of you that that will bring you mental peace. And so I always, like I said, I felt guilty because I knew that you were right. This whole time you were right. Damn, like, I don't want to go to the gym, but he's right though, because I'm not going to take care of myself. So yeah, so it's crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot. I make sure I keep training because it makes me feel good, number one. And number two, I want to make sure that what I'm making my students and my fighters do is right. I've seen instructors where they make these crazy workouts just because it's a long workout or there's a lot of repetitions doesn't mean it's a good one.
Yeah.
And just because people are in pain doesn't mean that they're sore. It means that you just killed their joints. So I wanted to make sure the stuff that I was giving them was suitable and was appropriate. One of my coaches to this day, and he's the one that got me started. Coach Kress was my freshman wrestling coach. And they used to make us run stairs. So we'd go down Loyola, we'd run down a hallway, we'd go up 3 flights of stairs, come back down, run down the hallway, go up 3 flights of stairs on the other side of the hallway, come back down. you know. And then here's Coach Kress running with the students. Coach Kress was 54 at the time, something like that.
No
and
excuses.
he was running the stairs, and not only running the stairs and keeping up, he was passing us up. I was 103 pounds in high school, and this man is just, he outlapped me. He did a complete lap around me. And from that day, I was like, all right, I got to be like that. And to this day, you know, he's in his 60s now. He's been training for 40 years, you know, and when I go over there and train with him, he's still throwing me around, and he's still, you know, he's still on the mats, and he still puts his gloves on, and he still goes, you know. So I looked up to the right people, you know, and that's what keeps me going. I understand that I'm young in what I'm doing, and I got a long way to go, so I got to make sure that I take care of my body too, you know. So I've made some adjustments to my training style. I've added more stretching and yoga into it to make sure that I can be in my 60s and keep pushing people to their limits like my coach does.
Wow. You just said right now also, they said you're young, and yes,
yeah.
As being a coach, you are pretty young.
Yeah.
But yet you have a lot of experience behind you.
Yeah, and that goes back to the definition of what a warrior is the experience, you know, the experience. And no matter what you've gone through, whether it's in martial arts or just in life, however old you are, you have that many years of experience of life, you know. So I'm gonna be 29 this year. I'm gonna be 29 years old this year, so I have 29 years worth of experience. I've been training for MMA for 10 years. I started wrestling 13 years ago, you know, so it's 13 years of experience in one thing and 10 years of experience in the other, you know. Wow. So you look at a 29-year-old with 10 years of something behind them, yeah, there's a long way to go still, and there's a lot of things I still need to work on, but, you know, you see stuff, you know, and for me, with my style of coaching, what my mission is with my gym is obviously produce fighters, but I just want to produce overall great martial artists. You know, the name of the gym is Warrior Evolution because I want to evolve the inner warrior of everybody that comes into that gym. And that's my main goal, you know. So it's the 10 years of experience in a sport, but it's also 10 years of experience of seeing the way people's minds work with the sport, you know, and seeing the mentalities that people have when they're doing it, and their loved ones, whether they're friends, roommates, family, that just see one side of the sport and that's what they see on TV. And there's so much more to that, and that's the part that I kind of want to highlight, you know. Nice. And that's the fight that I live, is making sure that people understand that it's not just, you know, there's been politicians that call it human cockfighting. This is not human cockfighting. This is, yes. There's a science to it. There's a lot. It's human chess. You know, you got to know what everybody's doing, and that's not just for fighting, that's for training. You know, there's a lot of mental stuff and emotional stuff that happens in training, and people don't get that. And that's what I want to show people.
Wow. Is there a person that you saw that evolution with that you can maybe talk about? An example maybe, or is there a person that you think?
I don't like talking for people.
Okay.
But I do see, you know, the only person I feel comfortable talking about is my experiences. You know, I went through some stuff, you know, mentally, emotionally, and, you know, I made bad decisions back in the day, you know, and based on what my family has seen from where I was the 4-year-old that was attached to my dad's leg. You know, I was the kid that wore socks in the pool because the bottom of the pool, I didn't like the feeling of the floor. You know, so when I got into MMA, people didn't believe me, not because of the physicality, but just because I hated being barefoot and I couldn't separate myself from my dad's leg. And that's the image that a lot of people in my family had. You know, and now I got cousins that, you know, I kind of grew up with that text me and was like, hey, we don't talk, but I see what you're doing, and you know, I just want to say keep it up and stuff like that, you know. So
but it took a lot.
It took a lot. It took a lot of mistakes. It took a lot of, you know, bad things that happened, a lot of heartbreaks, but that's what I needed to go through, because I didn't really ask to be a coach. I didn't ask to be, I knew I wanted to open up a gym, but I didn't know I was going to be this young opening up a gym. You know, it was kind of dropped into my hands, and the weight of a whole team, you know, behind me. You know, and it was in my eyes, with what was going on at the time, it was either, all right, no team, or I got to pick up the pieces and put it back together and run. You know, but if I didn't go through the experiences that I went through, if I didn't go through my own evolution, there's no way I could ask people to evolve themselves. You know, and it's the same way, the reason I still train, I do the workouts before I make anybody do them, because I got to do something before I ask somebody else to do it. You know, so I had to do my evolution so I can see that process, so I can understand it a little bit. And everyone's evolution is going to be different. But I had to understand the process for mine to be able to help others, you know, and that's where, you know, working with you for the past 4 years has come in. You know, the girl that I saw walk into the gym 4 years ago is totally different than the one that's sitting here now.
I agree.
You know, so, and that's just not from a physical standpoint of the martial arts, but it's just, you know, the things that you've gone through and the things that you've allowed me to be a part of in your story, and the things that you've talked to me about. The way that you handled things 4 years ago versus now is totally different. You know, the way that Carla handled herself when she first walked into the gym 6 years ago to now is totally different. You know, she went from, there was one day that I literally had to drag her to the gym, you know, so for her to go from that to now being the strength and conditioning coach and the basic class instructor, you know, 6 years ago, I would have never seen that coming, you know. Wow. So, and everyone's evolution starts the day that they walk through the door, you know, whether they walk through the door when we were Victory or the Next Step or Warrior Evolution. That very first day was our evolution, you know. And I see guys that have been with us from the beginning. You know, I tested with Zach for our black belts, and where he started after me, and he was one of the guys that helped me get through my loss in my fight, because he put on Facebook that the way I got out of an armbar like inspired him to do the technique classes and not just sparring. And to have that 7 years ago, for him to say that 7 years ago, and now for him to continue to train with me, and for him to have, I think, the best technique out of everybody in the gym, it was... Hey! No offense to everybody else.
Just no,
you know, but you know.
Yeah, he's very great, guys.
Zach took that, just that simple armbar escape that I did in my fight, to realize how important technique was, and he ran with it, you know. And then you got guys like Carlos that started training when I was already kind of in the teaching mode, and to see him go from I'm just doing this for fun to now he's taking everyone's ankles and heel hooks and stuff. Wow. You know, and then obviously the evolution of women's MMA in our gym. You know, when I started, there's very few women and they didn't last long. You know, and then Carla comes along, and then she, you know, starts her evolution process, and then she brings you in, you know, and now we got girls like Lily and Elena and Jessica and Naide and all the girls that train with us. Even the newer girls that are coming in, like Monica and Anna, they're just early in their process, but see the value of training, and they make it part of a lifestyle, you know. And that's the part that I enjoy seeing. And through this, you know, we're recording this during the time where, you know, the whole state's on a shutdown, but people are still seeing their training. I feed off the students in the class, and to see their videos of them training on their own is what keeps me going through this and keeps me motivated and inspired to keep doing the online training and the virtual classes and all that stuff. It's difficult for me, it's uncomfortable for me, because I want to see them and I want to be able to help people. And now doing it through a screen was a very, very big pill for me to swallow. But since we started the process, because people need to train during these times, that's what keeps me going.
Wow, that was powerful. That is, wow. And shout out to everybody that has been recording themselves.
Yes.
Because it takes a lot to put yourself out there, mm-hmm. knowing that there's still work to be done.
Yep.
And you being, out of everybody, how it feels to be in front of other people. But because you do this as a passion of yours, it just seems like it's so effortless.
And there's a lot of struggles in it, it may look effortless, but it's not. I just maybe do a better job now of hiding it. At the beginning, it was, I always said that Sean and Tazz were two different people. Whenever I was on the floor, I transformed from Sean into Tazz. So that transformation from Sean to Tazz took energy, and then to go from Tazz back to Sean took energy. And so I was always drained because I was trying to put on, a show and a certain persona for the classes. And once I realized that Sean and Tazz weren't all that different, and that Sean was in control of Tazz, it just became easier, and the two became the same, and I stopped trying to put on a show, and I stopped trying to be a certain way, and I was just me, and that's the important part for everybody. There's in the day of social media, there's so many different people out there, and they post different videos of them doing this, and they look like this. It's like, you can't compare yourself to that. You don't know when their process started. You don't know when their evolution started, so you can't compare yourself to them. All you can compare yourself to is where you are in the process compared to where you were when you started. And if you're better than that now than you were at the beginning, then you're on the right path, and just keep going.
Yeah, and I do fall into that category too, because sometimes I see myself, and then sometimes I see other people online, and they just look better, or they have better technique, or they fought for how many amount of fights, and it just seems so good.
Yeah.
But it's like, at the end of the day, I can't compare myself to them, because I started, like you said, in a different time, and then my journey is different, and we just need to focus on ourselves so that we can grow.
Yes.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. And it's difficult to do that, and because people see things differently, it's important to have different, different points of views from different people, and that's why building the team of leaders that we're doing, bring on Gladys and Natasha and Aaron and Leo stepping up. People see different perspectives. People can see, like, okay, for me, like, I'm the one that's been teaching classes for all these years, and I own the gym, and I've been training for this long, but then they see different body types. Obviously, I'm a shorter guy, but then you got like Aaron and Leo that are taller and with like lean. And Aaron's been training, I think, for at least with us for about 6 years now. Leo's been training just for like 4 years maybe. Yeah. Different levels and different experiences that they've had, and they've been in the cage. Aaron's done grappling and kickboxing matches as well. He's been to Thailand, and people get different views of the same thing, but all of us have different styles and different points of views, but we're all aiming to the same goal. We just want people to get better at their craft. We want them to get better at the sport, not for any reasons other than that's what their goal is. If you're in our gym, it's because you have the goal of becoming a better martial artist. So the people that we have helping on the floor and teaching and stuff, they have the same goal.
Wow. And at the end of the day, it's what makes them warriors.
Yes. Yep. Whether you're just starting, or whether you've been with us for years, whether you're just a student that just wants to get better, or you want to fight, or you've already fought and you want to keep fighting, you want to go pro, you don't want to go pro, every single one of them is a warrior every day.
Wow. Thank you guys so much for listening to that video. Now that you listened to it, let me know what you got out of it. What is it that you learned from it, if there was anything that you learned? And then also, I want to know, what does it mean for you to be a warrior? Remember, it doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter how young you are. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter if you have a job or don't have a job. It doesn't matter any of that. You are still a warrior. So I just want to remind you that. This is Nene, and look out for more videos.